Well, welcome to the Run Testers. It's Kieran here. I am down at the Adidas Terrex Maverick Exmoor Ultra. It is a classic Devon day. It's kind of grey, it's a bit wet, it's going to be muddy. And in this video I'm going to be testing the HOKA Tecton X. They're fresh out of the box this morning. I've got about 34 miles, I think some proper steep climbs. We've got about 3,000 metres of ups and downs, and we will see how they get on in these sort of slightly sloppy, muddy conditions. Let's go and have a look. So about 11.5 miles in, it's taken about 2 hours and a half on the HOKA Tecton X2 on what is pretty tricky terrain. There's lots of slippy mud, lots of really wet stones, roots, quite steep descents. It's really rocky. We went over some crazy Exmoor kind of rocky cliffs that were pretty sketchy, narrow paths. So it's been a brilliant test so far for these shoes. They're holding up pretty well actually. Grip in the slippier mud obviously isn't going to do the job. And but when I've hit some wet stones and other bits, it's been just about enough. Though I am feeling a little bit edgy. I think that's all I'm going to be able to say for now, because I am hacking up one of the big hills, and it's quite hard to talk and breathe. So I've just finished the Adidas Terrex Maverick Exmoor Ultra. No, I didn't. I finished the marathon because I took the other turn. So I've just finished the marathon distance, 26 miles, 5.5 hours, a bit more, on really quite sort of testing terrain out there. It's a really good test for the HOKA Tecton X2. Threw everything at them: mud, slippy stones, really steep descents, big climbs, fields, stretches of tarmac, tree roots, loose stones, all sorts. It's basically like a perfect test for the shoes, really. In quite sort of difficult conditions at times, and they performed really well. I'm really, really happy to fresh out the box. The comfort is good. There's plenty of cushioning that really soaked up a lot of the lumps and bumps, and I feel like they performed really well on most of that terrain. Some people may feel they want a little bit more ground contact. There's a big stack of cushioning is quite soft. Sometimes, one thing, it will kind of soak up some of these lumps and bumps. Sometimes maybe you don't feel quite as connected to the ground as you would like. If you like a kind of firmer, more direct shoe, then these are probably going to come up a little bit softer. That connection isn't quite there. Carbon plate and all of that, the foam works together. I think it comes into its own when you go on the sort of stretches of tarmac. You really notice that. It ran as well as some road shoes that I've tested, and that was great because there were sort of some quite long sections of that. Did well on the ups, pretty well on the downs. Some of the sort of more slippy conditions, it wasn't so good, but then again I saw loads of people out there today wearing lots of different shoes slipping all over the place, so there were conditions where I don't think any shoe is going to help you really. But the one thing I will say is on some of there were sections where I feel like other shoes would give you a bit more confidence. I didn't feel 100% confident in these. It wasn't quite, the traction wasn't quite there, and I had to kind of slow down a little bit and pick my way a bit more than I would have liked, so maybe the grip isn't 100%. I also, in terms of the fit, I've got a little bit of pinching across the top of my foot. I think I may have either laced them down a little bit too much, and I'll test that in subsequent tests, or they're a little bit tight across the top, the midfoot. Toe box wise, probably just about enough room, but if you like a really roomy toe box, this has got that kind of HOKA fit, which is sort of slightly narrower. But overall, I think these have run really well today in some really quite testing conditions, and definitely gave me a little bit extra towards the end of this when we reached sort of the final sections where it's a little bit more runnable. So yeah, largely happy. If I think of anything else that comes to mind whilst I'm driving back from the race, I'll do a wrap up in the office. But otherwise, this has been the race test of the HOKA Tecton X2, the Adidas Terrex Maverick Exmoor Ultra, which has also been a really fantastic race. I'm off to try and get myself back together. So I wanted to give you a quick whip round of what's new from the HOKA Tecton X to the HOKA Tecton X2. And the main difference here basically is the uppers. You've got some new uppers that HOKA calls Matrix. These are basically hydrophobic uppers. Essentially that means they are faster drying and give you a little bit more kind of protection from water. Overall though, they're still quite structured, and yeah, there's not too much difference in terms of the way they feel on the foot. When it comes to the midsole unit, you're getting much the same kind of here. You've got the same big stack of Pro Fly X foam. You've got the same parallel carbon plates. They come with the same stack height, which is 30 mils in the heel and 25 mils in the forefoot in the women's shoe, and 32 mils in the heel and 27 mils in the forefoot for the men's. So the same 5 mil drop that you had in the original Tecton X as well. Flip them over then, and the outsole is exactly the same. You've got the same traction pattern. You've got the same Vibram Mega Grip sole. Nothing to see here in terms of differences. Now, the other minor difference here is in terms of weight. The new Tecton X2 are slightly heavier than the original. They come in at 8.8 ounces or 252 grams to the first gen's 8.5 ounces or 240 grams. The other thing to note here is they are more expensive too. They're up from $220 in the US to $225. In the UK, they've gone from £175 up to £185. So it's been a few days since I did the race, and my overall verdict on the Tecton X2 and how they've performed is, I think these are a really good solid shoe. I like the Tecton X originals. I think they're punchy. I think they're a good kind of lively trail shoe. I think they really excel on races where it's going to be kind of firm and compacted, and you might be doing stretches through villages and sort of towns, and you've got a bit of road, a bit of compacted trail, where you can actually get the benefit of that extra kind of carbon plate propulsion, and the softer foam doesn't really make too much difference in terms of being sort of mega technical terrain. That's when I think they're really coming to their own, and they're a lovely shoe to run in. I've run in them on the roads actually. I've done about 7 miles just flat on tarmac, and they run as well as I think many road shoes that I've run in recently, or at least some road shoes that I've run in recently. They're pretty comfortable. They're a little bit narrow. The fit, you know, you might want to consider maybe going up half a size if you like a bit more room in the toe box. They've got that kind of classic sort of HOKA sort of quite sort of tight kind of area across the top of the midfoot. Now I do think the way the lacing structure has changed here, the laces don't go quite so low across the toes, and that does give you a little bit more movement sort of across here, across the top of the toes, which I really appreciated. In terms of comfort, they're brilliant. You know, out the box, I ran 26 miles, had no problems at all with blistering hot spots, too much movement. You know, I felt they were Loctite and really good. And I think, yeah, for rolling trail runs and ultras, I think these are a really, really good shoe. You know, there's a lot of cushion here, so you're going to have to take that into account. If you like a lot of cushion, you're going to get that. There is a bit of spring in them, and again, you know, it depends how kind of connected you want to feel to the trail. You know, if you like a lot of ground contact and something that's a little bit more direct, you want to feel basically the trail coming up through a little bit more so you can feel that control, then maybe these shoes aren't for you. They do put a bit between you and what's going on underfoot. But for me, overall, having done that race test, I think there's a lot of trail runs that I might encounter here in the UK where I think this could be a great shoe. I'm thinking about things that you might know, the Centurion kind of Thames Path 100 when you're running along the River Thames. I think anything on the sort of South Downs or North Downs Way here. I also think things like the Threshold series, basically anything off-road where, you know, it's not really kind of steep and mountainous and too rooted and stony and crazy. I think these shoes are going to cope. And overall, I found this to be a really good shoe to run in. I enjoyed it a lot, and it's one of those that for that kind of race, I think I would happily recommend, particularly if you're pushing over the marathon distance and into ultra. So there you have it. That has been my race test of the HOKA Tecton X2. I'm going to put in lots more miles in this shoe before we do the full review. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions that you want to see answered in that review, hit me up in the comments below. If you've run in the shoe and you've got some thoughts and feelings about it, let us know as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're interested in other trail shoes, there will be a video of our best trail shoes appearing on the channel about now. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope to see you again soon on the Run Testers. Over and out.